Hey, you are listening to The Brown Perspective. This is RO, and I'm here with Eduardo. How are we doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Hanging in there in this clown
Awesome.
world.
In this clown world,
This
todos
is,
somos payasos.
yeah, this
Porque
is,
payaso de rodeo soy.
it must be the people that I follow on Twitter because every now and then I see these posts from Clown World today. And I think what I've seen from them in the last 2 to 3 months is that they usually try to point out things that they consider ridiculous from the left, from the
Mhm.
liberals. For example, the transgender, the trans swimmer that won all those medals recently, that they'll post stuff like that to make it seem like, oh, look at how crazy the liberals are. And so I saw this one today and I thought this was pretty interesting because it's like they're sharing it as if it's something that's true. But then look, let's read it and then we'll talk about it. It says Portland restaurant comes up with innovative new idea to promote racial equity, creating separate sections for black and white diners. We want to provide a safe space for our diners of color to ease the trauma of living in racist society, the owner said. Now, I saw this, and usually what they just share headlines from the real world to kind of to say, look at how ridiculous things are. And I saw this and I thought, wait, this can't be true. And usually I go to the comments and I see the back and forth, and usually I'll see if somebody posts references or anything. So this guy, he's not naming the restaurant, which is right away it's a flag that tells you this is probably not true. But what struck me is that when I was reading the comments, it's like it seems like a good amount of people actually do think it's true, and whereas the others are like, oh well, give us your sources.
Based on all the responses that you're scrolling through, it's interesting to see what the reception has been of this.
And there are a good amount of people that are questioning the authenticity, but well, the first is this Clown World account. So obviously, it's an account that no one should really take that seriously, and this is one of the reasons why, because they'll just share things that they haven't even verified. And so, but what caught my attention here was that I saw it and I thought, no way, this has to be fake. So then obviously, yeah, there's no source, there's no name of the restaurant. But then again, seeing people that actually believe it, because it gives you an insight into what they actually think about liberals, that they've become so unhinged that at this point anything's possible. So the people that would share this and just believe it, they're almost at the point where they think that this like that, or they're at the point where they think that the liberals would actually propose something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing about woke culture and social engineering that has been creeping up.
How does this differ from, say, uh, like black only colleges or girl only Catholic schools? That's segregating, if not segregation by the rule of law, but that's
Yeah, I mean, it's segregation in the sense of, again, you need a space where you can be with the people who have a shared experience. So whether it's gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic class, etc. So I think the in some ways the reason why there were historically black institutions, it wasn't because they were like, oh, let's just create a school for all black people. No, it was because they were excluded
mm-hmm.
from some of the institutions. So that was a response. And there's some arguments about the fact that in some ways, when there was a sense to a movement to integrate, but it was great that that there was a movement to integrate. There was a lot of people who were learning, a lot of black professionals, teachers, and others who unfortunately weren't able to be hired, right? So a lot of people who lost out on a great education and then had to face the the battle of just being accepted, right? Of just being able to walk into the door. So I think it's
Well,
very
sure, you
different.
can.
It's not an apples to apples
Well,
comparison.
sure, but you can make that justification for the need for these black only colleges back then. But then after desegregation, after integration, obviously not right away, but say by the 80s or the 90s, you would think then that at that point you could start to decrease to integrate those schools, so that where today, if even if you still had predominantly black people, you would have a breakdown of more like 60-40, something like that.
I mean, and they may be. I think it would be good to take a look at what the enrollment figures are, because I think it does include also, people of mixed heritage, right? People who maybe are half white, half black, who maybe grew up in a all white environment and want to reconnect with their black roots. People who are Afro descendants, Afro Latinos, like Afro Colombians, Afro Puerto Ricans, because I think ultimately too is that those institutions are were dedicated and are dedicated to academic pursuits and provide a space that's unique. So I see you pull out the figures for Morehouse, which is a prominent.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. This does not add up to 100 though. But it's still 3/4 of it African American. Wouldn't you be able to make the claim that that's completely unnecessary at this point?
No, no, I don't think it's unnecessary.
Then how is that different than Portland? Than this joke about Portland about restaurants giving sections for black people only?
Well, the thing is, we're probably more segregated now than we were, or maybe not, but I think to a large extent we are more segregated and continue to live in segregated communities. So I know that there's restaurants
Well,
here in,
not intentionally though. That's more as
not
a result
intentionally, but
of,
by de facto, right?
yeah, de
Like
facto.
I'm sure there
But
there are
more,
restaurants in Beverly Hills where the clientele is from a very different demographic than when you go to
yeah,
a
housing laws
restaurant in
and
South LA,
yeah,
right?
exactly, like the banks and how they make it more difficult for blacks or Hispanics in certain areas to get loans, etc. So it's not, we're not doing it intentionally, but Morehouse is a college where they could easily change their admission policy. So they are, and I'm not saying they should change it. I'm just entertaining here just how crazy the idea would be to have restaurants where you could have a section just for black people. We seem to accept it still in other places, somewhat. Not, it's not the same. It's not like apples to apples, because Morehouse is integrated, but it's still predominantly black.
Yes. I don't know what to say.
I don't think there's really a right answer. I'm sure that depending on who you ask, they can come up with a really good justification for why this still makes sense, and someone else can come up with the justification for why it's not needed at all. And I think that's just the way things are sometimes. These days, just about anybody can make a justification for why something is valid, and why they think it should, you know why they think things should work a certain way.
Yeah, but I think just sticking with the example of Morehouse, yes, maybe we live in a more integrated society now, and there could potentially, black students can apply to any school and maybe get in, or you can also have, folks from mixed races or whites who decide to attend the institution. But I think there's a history, there's a legacy of what happened. There's also, I think, a certain academic pursuit or interest that I'm sure is focused around the identity of black men in this particular case, of black people in general. So I think there's a need for people who, whether it's because of academic interest or just personal interest that they want to say, you know what, for the next 4 years, I want to immerse myself in this world and then be better prepared on who I am, my history, and then do something else, and then go to Yale and be one of the only few people of color in my class, right? So I think that there's still a need for the type of academy and the type of experience that happens there. And also, this is to say that, there's a lot of other small white liberal Christian schools that are predominantly white, and that's where folks from those backgrounds feel comfortable, and that's perfectly fine.
But it's also perfectly fine to fight against that, to say you need to be more diverse, and say that you should accept more Hispanics, more blacks. And by the way, I didn't really pay attention to this number earlier, but 0.16% white. So again, I don't know where this 25% is. Maybe I should just get some breakdown from another one, but yeah, 0.16%, 0.186% white. Yeah, I don't really have an answer here. I think the idea of segregated restaurants would be, I don't think that would be very beneficial. But I would also be okay with pushing for more diversity in all white colleges as well as predominantly black colleges. I'm sure there's people that can make the argument like you did, that there's still, things are still not equal, there's still disadvantages and so forth, so we still need these colleges. I'd be more than happy to hear it out, hear that justification. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting about the whole. And Portland, of all places, of course.
Very liberal.
Yeah, it has to be Portland. Portlandia. Any closing thoughts?
No, thank you for introducing me to the Clown World account.
I don't know if you're gonna like it. Look. Here's
payasos.
I've said this before. Like, I need to consume information from all segments. So I don't like echo chambers. So I'll listen to Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I'll listen to MSNBC. I'll listen to CNN. I'll listen to the most progressive, communist, liberal person out there, or libertarian. It doesn't matter. I want to hear all sides, and then I can make up my own mind about stuff. So Clown World today is just one of those other feeds of information that I get across on my Twitter feed sometimes, and just some of the stuff is interesting, some of the stuff is fake. So do with it as you will.
Yeah, and I think that's a fascinating thing, because obviously I know someone like my mom would see something like this and maybe think it's real. And I think there's still some people who may think that this information is real just because you see it on Twitter. Because maybe the Clown World Today account, but I think if you see it in another context, you'll be like, oh wait, like this is actually, or whether it's an ad, right? So I know that there's also this problem with misinformation and confusion. So I think a lot of us are subject, like you said, like not all of us are actively looking for other sources of information. So we could easily fall prey to this type of misinformation, or something that's not real, maybe said as a joke to be provocative, but people just assume that it's true. Or maybe not. Maybe there's enough people who say, well, this is really not going to happen in 2022.
Don't say that Twitter needs to ban Clown World Today for spreading misinformation.
Speaking of Clown World, what happened to the clown that was supposed to buy Twitter?
Oh, Musk? A publicity stunt. Did we talk about that? I don't know if I told you that I felt that was not going to happen. That's just a publicity stunt. Just like his stunt to go to Mars. Can't even figure out a way to recycle things properly here on Earth. Can't even figure out a way to desalinate water effectively. You think he's going to get us to Mars? Come on. Like it's just
There's
it's
their
full of,
hope.
it's all marketing with him. Most of it, really. Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Oh, and he sold his Bitcoin, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. That was well, he was it he or was it his company? I think it was his company, no?
Well, yeah,
Tesla.
but I'm sure with his approval because they had to report earnings, and I think they needed to make it seem like the company was profitable. So I think it was out of necessity more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think we can wrap it up there. For all of you out there, if you enjoy our content, make sure to check us out. We are Brown Perspective. Nos vemos.